I'll tell you, there was a personal agenda to add this question, okay?
Same goes with, I think, a baker who successfully nails down the recipe to perfectly bake a cheesecake, maybe.
People ask that, were you excited? But so tired, I'll tell you. We are doing this work. So tired that there was no chance to get excited.
Better be quiet because otherwise sir will hunt us down.
I'm going to take notes. Like, I'm really telling. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the season 2, episode 11 of Space Smurfs, a podcast where we mostly discuss about space stuff, but we also end up rambling about a range of other topics from K-pop to NFTs. This is your host, Aleena, the potentially space person, and
Pooja here. And we hope you're having a great week ahead of you. And those who are joining us for the first time, we are the podcast team of the Asia Pacific Oceania Space Association, or APOSA, a sustainable space community development initiative at the Asia Pacific level. And through Space Smurfs, our idea is to bring different varieties of space topics to you, wrapped in a lot of fun and laughter.
Absolutely. And after a series of very amazing topics in Space Smurfs, today also we have a very interesting expert and also a very interesting topic to discuss about. Today we are going to discuss about astronomy outreach and science communication. I mean, we all might know more about astronomy, but how does it work with outreach and science communication? I'm actually a bit clueless on that part.
I know, right? I mean, I feel like people may know astronomy, but communicating science and communicating it is a different skill set altogether. And exactly to discuss that today with us, we have our expert, Mr. Arvind Paranjpye, who is the director of the Nehru Planetarium, Mumbai. He's also the discoverer of many asteroids, with one named after him and his team. Welcome, sir, to this session. We are really looking forward to it.
Thank you so much. I'm also looking forward to meeting your guests, visitors.
Awesome. Thank you so much, sir. And to the audience out there, we also have a very wonderful opportunity that only Space Smurfs can give to you all. So that is, you can interact with our expert on this coming Saturday, that is 6th of August, 5 p.m. IST. Don't miss out this opportunity. Like I have always been talking to you, this is a 1 in a million chance. So join us on the live session happening on Instagram and reach out to Arvind sir and ask your questions about how does all these things works together, right? And with that said, let's begin the smurfing.
Yeah,
absolutely. So, sir, my first question to you is, how many decades has this been that you're doing, astronomy outreach and science communication? And did you always know that you wanted to do this, or how did your journey begin? How did you end up as a science communicator and an astronomy outreach as a field?
well, if you say decades, so then I think it should be close to 50 decades.
Wow.
Age of 10 or something, been interested in astronomy. And there have been various opportunities also, because my father was in Geological Survey of India. So we used to be in outskirts, away from even small villages. We never stayed in villages because these people used to pitch their own tents and stay in those tents. So they were not looking for houses anywhere. So sky used to be very dark, and maybe fascination for beautiful sunrise or sunset and stars and all that was there. But then in my family, there's some people. I mean, I would like to, if I should boast, that my great grand uncle was the first Asian wrangler. Wrangler is a degree which is given by it's a mathematical degree. He was first Asian wrangler. Then his student married to my aunt. So there was some kind of an academic atmosphere in our home, and because they were all mathematicians, so naturally with mathematics, the astronomy also comes in. And I remember when we were in Udaipur, my uncle had shown us this comet Ikiaseki. He was the vice chancellor of the university, and he woke us up early in the morning, and then we went out and saw the long tail of this comet Ikiaseki, and it was quite fascinating. Later on, another comet came, uh, and uh, uh, and Hyakutake, which was supposed to make waves but it did not stand up. Yakutake did not show up as much as it should have. It was faint, but then I was following it up, and somewhere there is interest started. And then third one is that the man landing on the moon. Okay, we were just at the right time at that place. Right age to feel that excitement of Armstrong landing on the moon. We were in Jaipur at that time. So this has happened. So there was some interest in astronomy. Um, then we moved to Bangalore, and where I met the Amateur Astronomers Club and Indian Institute of Astrophysics, which took a rather serious turn. I mean, then I started getting involved in astronomy more seriously, started learning how to make amateur telescopes. And today it is much more easier, but in those days it was very difficult for one to make their own telescopes. There was very little clarity about how to go about making telescopes and so on. But then my interest started from there and continued till date. Actually, I often also say people when they ask me when you would retire, I normally say that I can't retire because I haven't worked at all. For last 3 organizations, they have paid for my hobby. So I have not worked. It has all been hobby and hobby and hobby. Pleasure.
I mean, I should actually say this, like there are only a few people who actually have their passion or hobby as their job. And I consider those people as lucky in their life. And I'm so glad that, starting from like, even I myself, I'm a very big fan of sunsets and sunrise and even like normal plain sky. I have my gallery full of sky videos and everything, but from that kind of a very normal gesture of loving space or loving skies or looking the sky, observing the sky, you just came a long way from there. And the person you are right now, it's so inspiring. And I feel like all the audience out there, if you are a sky lover like me, just, there is still a chance for you to get inspired and, do all the things that you want to do. Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel like the journey has been more than fascinating because there have been so many different, ways. First of all, of course, the background that you spoke about in terms of the exposure, I think that sets a lot of, precedence in terms of, the early influence. And I think a lot of people may have that exposure as well, but to continue and to keep that spark going, I think there's another level of dedication also involved there. And so I feel like that's really fascinating. There's so much to learn from your journey. Thank you so much for sharing that with us, sir.
I would like to add one small thing here, and which I across the table when I talk to a number of people. See, there are 2 things involved in it. One is to have your passion converted into job, or then take your job as your passion. That is one. Okay, if you take your job as your passion, then it's no more a job. It is that work that you like and you keep doing it. But at the same time, when I took up the job, I noticed that people also come out with those that I need this much of salary, I need this many these effort, comforts in my job. So when I see this amateur astronomers coming and then they would like to have job, they also have something which boundary conditions. I was willing to go anywhere they wanted me to go. I was willing to do whatever they asked me to do, and without any complaints, and I enjoyed it. Whereas I find today, it's a very sad thing, but unfortunate it is that when I say to some young people that, look, they want a job, and they said, look, you may have to go to a small village, and they would refuse it. No. Oh, why? You take in Mumbai, I mean, people don't marry in between the Western line and Eastern line. That's the reality of life here. But if you have a passion, just go ahead and do whatever that needs you to cultivate that passion.
As you say, surrender yourself to the universe, is it?
Yeah, surrender yourself. You are rightly said.
Yeah, and also like I think passion, it has to come along with hard work to meet success, right? Like it should be a mixture of both of things together at perfect ratio. And you can't just reach success or get to a place where you really want to be without just like simply doing something, or you have to work hard. And this is something we always hear, and I know a lot of people might be irritated to hear it again and again, but still, like, that's like the golden rule of life. Anyway, we will move on to the next question for Arvind sir, which is actually, I have been hearing about you since Pooja joined Space Smurfs, and I've learned quite a lot about how you maintain this excitement and enthusiasm. So, like, even after so many years of pursuing astronomy, you still jump with joy after successfully observing an occultation and all these things. So how do you keep that fire burning after all these years? Like you mentioned, around 50 decades, sorry, 5 decades. So like, how do you keep that?
I don't know how do I keep that, but I suppose it is built in. And another reason I'll give you, I'm not just the only one. I have seen mathematicians. I have seen particularly mathematicians, and one name, a couple of names. I mean, I can tell you that husband and wife team of Narlikars, Professor Jayant Narlikar. I have seen him, then other mathematicians, that when they solve the problem, simple or difficult, okay, you solve a problem, and if the problem is difficult, you start writing it and you solve, and then you get the right answer. And that itself sort of gives a trigger, and then you said, oh, I have solved it. Oh, wonderful. Then they would probably even clap there. Yes, I have done it. So I suppose it has been like that. And not only me, but every person who tries to solve a problem or try to correct it or to try to do some observation. And when you have done it successfully, the joy comes out automatically. You don't require to, I mean, it just happens that you want it. You know, like sometimes like you get a birthday gift and you open it and you find it something that you wanted and you got it surprising gift. And then you just simply jump over it, jump to that excitement. So that is what happens. Yeah, it does happen to me. And it is in every case. I mean, if there's a good observation or pointing an object, difficult object in your telescope, or for that matter, even solving a mathematical problem, I think impulsively I get excited. And not only, I mean, it's something, another thing which I can say similarity is that, you know, those music concert, if you go, and then when particularly Hindustani music, and when one person sings a rag and then come to the same point, and they both clap at, I mean, the people smile at each other, or they appreciate each other, give the pat on the back. So I think if you have passion, it comes out naturally. You don't have to make extra efforts to get it. I suppose that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
And yeah, exactly. I was about to go say that. Yeah, and I think with Pooja's experience, I feel like you get that kind of satisfaction once you get a clear picture of the sky or the star that we are viewing, Pooja, right?
Yes, and I tell you, there was a personal agenda to add this question. Okay, there's a little bit of a story. This is during the first few years of me being an amateur astronomer, and there were a group of us. It was never alone. We had a whole bunch of people who used to come together, and we were observing an occultation. And while you're doing that, you better be quiet, because otherwise, sir will hunt us down. And we will hear like no one else, so we have to be silent during the event. And after the event, we'll all be jumping, and doing all sorts of things. But yeah, so we successfully observed the occultation, and sir was of course jumping up and down literally, and he came and gave all of us a hug who were a part of the team. And we just saw that, and that is also a time when you are in college, you're trying to figure out what do you want to do with life. And there were just 3-4 of us who just looked at each other and we said, listen, we want to do whatever we want to do that will make us feel like this even when we are 50. And that was a sort of a turning point for a lot of us, and we always refer to this coming back that, okay, if we want to do something, is it going to make us jump with joy when we are 50, like Arvind sir? Then we should do it. Otherwise, we should pass it on.
Exactly. I mean, I don't know how it might have been to you guys to see, but I can kind of vaguely imagine how that scenario would have been. And I think if this is going to be a general rule, not just for astronomy and everything. It's like, if you have passion and you, like he mentioned clearly in the beginning, like about the mathematician couple, like they figure that the answer to the particular question, they feel that joy. And same goes with, I think, a baker who successfully nails down the recipe to perfectly bake a cheesecake, maybe. I mean, it depends on what you really want to do in life, and that passion and the hard work that you put in to be that, to create that final success of it. I think everyone, I feel like everyone can, resonate with Arvind sir here. And with that, we'll move on to the next question, shall we?
Absolutely. So next I'm going to a serious question, sir. You have been doing astronomy outreach since a lot of time. We're also aware about your background with Ayuka and your astronomy outreach there. What has been the key trends that you've observed in terms of the evolution of astronomy outreach in India? And in terms of what are the challenges that used to be there, and if you can see some impact that has been created throughout the years, we'd love to know your insights on that.
Yeah, outreach was a rather a new concept and it started about 25 years ago or something. Prior to that, it was science popularization. People used to call it science popularization. And it was needed in this country because, first of all, our constitution itself says that you should be scientifically educated and all of that. There's a clause for it. But yes, there was science popularization program in different institutions. But it wasn't taken seriously, or it wasn't taken at all by any particular institute, say about 25, 30 years ago. People talking about astronomy, at that time, Professor Vainu Pappu and the director of, the next director of IIA, Professor J.C. Bhattacharya. So Professor Venu Pappu, when he started Indian Institute of Astrophysics, I think it was in 71 or something, he was an amateur astronomer. So he knew what kind of amateur astronomy, what kind of astronomy do amateur astronomers do. So he was aware of that. So he would participate in amateur astronomy activity, or go and give lectures and ask people to start amateur astronomers clubs and so on. And that is how one club in Bangalore, which is called the Association of Bangalore Amateur Astronomers, ABA, which started. And people got together, and why they wanted to get together is to just exchange the ideas. And that was the first time. So what I was a little late. I mean, I was about 7 or 8 months late when the association started. So what these people did at that time is that a couple of them, they met at British Council's library, and both of them were browsing through astronomy books. So naturally they asked each other, oh, so you love astronomy, you like astronomy? They said yes. So then said that, okay, why not we start a club? And so how to start a club? So what they did was that in the books, they left a small note. The note which says that if you love astronomy, you like astronomy, then come and meet us at such and such place on such and such date. It was some Sunday afternoon at one of the person's home. And few people gathered together, and that is how they started this club. And then Professor Venu Bapu sort of went and gave the lectures, helped them in doing some amateur astronomy. Vishwesvaraya Industrial and Technological Museum gave them a space to do astronomy. Indian Institute of Astrophysics allowed us to Xerox. There was no Xerox in that in those days. It was what is called the chorostat. So what used to happen is a huge machine on which the book was mounted. Then some kind of a photocopy is made. Then they would sprinkle some kind of black powder, then dusted the powder, and then on top of it, the paper would be placed, so you get a copy out of it. That is why it was called chorostat. So we were allowed to make maps, photocopy of these maps. Sometimes we were even allowed to use a photographic lab. That is where I learned photography, laboratory photography, to make star maps. And star map is the only thing. And if you wanted to have, like nowadays, you just forget even about photocopying. You actually take a picture of a book page that you would like to read. In those days, we used to actually write down with hand. You see, go to the library, you wanted to take down a paragraph, so you look at it, then you take it down, and then we would discuss. So my point was that information was available so little that we used to get together, discuss these issues, and then invite people to give talks and so on and so forth. So that was in that era. But things were changing slowly. Uh, in the Indian Institute of Astrophysics itself, the photocopying machines came, books started becoming available rather cheap. Okay, one could buy these books. As far as telescope making is concerned, in those days, I remember I was hunting for material for almost 6 hours before I got the right material for making telescope. Then I had to run from one place to another to learn. Then, since the telescope making was completely new, so people had put a very stringent conditions because they read these um, American and British books, which gave very stringent conditions to make the telescope, which is not which is quite correct. But if you as an amateur astronomer want to see us use a telescope instead of your eyes, then you don't really need that sophisticated setup, right? And so we came up. So later on in my next avatar, I would say that came to Pune. So we started experimenting with low-cost telescope, how to make telescope at very cheaper rate, and we started doing that. Whether in those days 6-inch mirror was the big thing, but we found that even 4-inch would work. Then photography was something. So we learned how to photograph the sky, and then it was very expensive to go take your film to go to the Photoshop and then ask the person to develop the film and then make prints. So we learn how to develop the film so that we can select the right frame, or what you call frame, but we said the right negative to make picture out of it. So that is how it happened there. And when I was in Bangalore, it was not so much of an outreach from Indian Institute of Astrophysics side. It is whoever was doing something, they were allowed to do. No one stopped you doing. I mean, we were putting telescope and going to Indian Institute of Astrophysics had a wonderful Carl Zeiss telescope, 6-inch. So we used to take that telescope, and it was happening. But then another person who really did a lot of work for science popularization and who got the Kalinga Award for outdoor science popularization is Professor Jayant Narlikar. Now, Jayant Narlikar was a person who believed in communicating beyond his official duties, communicating science to general public. And if you remember in 1979, 80s or 84, 85, something, that period, he even brought this Carl Sagan's Cosmos to India. And what he used to do was that Doordarshan used to run Cosmos on their television channel. And before the video starts, Narlikar used to sum it up, give a summary of what they are going to see. So Professor Narlikar did a good lot of science popularization. And when he started IUCA in Pune, he made it a point that one of the goals of IUCA would be outreach, okay, science popularization. That is the time when outreach started at IUCA. And somehow, because my interest was in making amateur telescopes and cheap quality, cheaper instruments, okay, the quality was good, but the instrument cost was low. So such instruments I started making for amateur astronomers. And then at some point in time, he created a post of outreach officer, and then I shifted to outreach. We were there for almost 15 odd years. So then things changed very rapidly because electronic era was changing. Internet had come. I think we were one of the first few people who had, earlier people who had their email ID. I still remember my email ID at that time. You could not have longer name. It had to be only 3-letter name ID. So my ID was arp@darghar.iuka.arnet.in for such a long one. Okay. So that's the kind. But there was a very interesting part of it also. That internet was new, so and it was mostly among the institutions, scientific institutions. So we used to follow where our email is going. So once you have sent an email, then you can monitor from which domain to which domain that email has gone. There used to be a big list, which later on email service provider had removed it. Anyway, so email was new, and but because of email, uh, uh, things started becoming the information started opening for general public. Okay, internet came in, so information started becoming available. So even in Pune, when I was associated with amateur astronomers, so we used to go take telescope and go to nearby places and observe overnight, etc. But then internet became available, and then so the light pollution also started increasing far rapidly in last few years than it was there about 40 years ago. So this started, and then what happened was that because information is available so easily, the charm of association started going down. Okay, so there are not too many associations which are working as they were working about 30 years ago, because members would find very little interest to come to the meetings every Sunday or every first Sunday of the month and all that, and to discuss, because everything that is what you want to discuss, either you can discuss online or it is available on the internet. So then what is the challenge today? Now the challenge that you are asking me is that information is available and you are armchair astronomer. Okay, but ultimately there is a sky. You have to take your telescope to the sky. Okay, you have to observe the sky, and if that is what it is, then you certainly need to handhold someone who is knowledgeable, someone who is expert. Now you said occultation. What's the occultation? Occultation is a simple phenomena in which one celestial body hides the another celestial body behind it. Okay, so if you talk about occultation of stars by the moon, then the moon comes directly between that star and us. Now, it's a beautiful thing to observe, enjoyable thing. I mean, within a fraction of a second, the star is gone from your field and so on. But these observations also give you scientific information. If correctly observed, it can help you to find the map the topography of the moon. Okay. Also, if correctly observed, you can talk about whether the star was single or binary star. Then you can get the angular diameter of the star, and these are the outcomes of such observations. Or other observations could be hunting for supernovae. In earlier days, we used to actually have one region of the sky which you would scan every day. Okay, and then if there is a supernova, you will convey that to astronomical community. Now it is very easy. You can take a picture of that particular region of the sky. You have to do that, and then if you find a supernova, you convey to the central authority, or for that matter, discovery of comet. So there are many things for which associations are needed, or someone hand-holding is needed. And these are the challenges. Until such time that, particularly talking about Indian amateur astronomer, until such time that that they get over making beautiful pictures of using their cameras and stacking the images and all that, and come down to actual observations. Otherwise, we will just remain there. You make some good pictures. I have someone takes a good picture of a Saturn. Okay, I have also taken the picture of a Saturn, and that's the end of it. Participating in a regular observational astronomy, which is scientifically useful, that is one thing which one should learn to do. Secondly, there is also what is called the virtual observatories. The virtual observatories are observatories where the data is already available. You download the data, scan the data, and see whether you can do some astronomy. Say, try to find out the variable stars, try to find out comets. So this can be done on your desktop, which a lot of people are doing, no doubt about it. But if your passion is to observe the sky, then this is the challenge. What challenge I see is that if people get interested, then we can help them to do observations. And that the last challenge, of course, remains that it has not been that easy in the like earlier days. You have to go too far away from the city to actually have the dark night, the dark sky. So,
Absolutely.
that's a long answer to your short question.
But still, I mean, I think the answer was really, really insightful. It gave into a lot of history also when it came to how the astronomy outreach began in India. And I think a lot of our audience will be interested to know about this, because I don't remember we learning about astronomy outreach in any of our social science texts. We might learn about space, how space started, but not entirely the whole big picture. You just learn one part of it, but it's not just that part, right? Like, it's going to be a big picture of it where there is going to be astronomy and other branches of space itself. So this was really, really insightful, I will say. And I know you have talked about the digital platforms from the beginning till now, but still I wanted to ask, like, right now we have a lot of like, let's say, like, we can just view the stars and we can just use the information that is there on our phones with just a link, with just a click, and internet is widely available to everyone and anyone actually in today's century. So how does the new media and digital platforms, along with the availability of widespread internet connectivity and all, is changing the astronomy outreach in India? I know you might have answered a part of it in the previous answer, but still, like, to be very significant, how do you think it's changing the face of astronomy outreach in India?
It is changing both good as well as bad. The bad part is, I have seen, and most of you have seen, videos made by people who have passed on wrong information. Okay, because this media is available, astronomy is available, people have done something totally unimaginably wrong things on the media. I mean, you get the video and just pass it on, and people who watch this video, they think what he has said is correct. People have talked about, people also have talked about ancient astronomy in India. Okay, some of it is correct, but some of it is certainly not correct. So that's a challenge from our side as to which things are not correct. Excuse me, to people, but then not see the people like us who are most amateur astronomers, serious amateur astronomers. They don't really bother. They go out and they are busy with themselves. But then some people who are interested, I think we should come out and say that what these people have said, it's wrong. So to answer your question, basically is that correct information should be made available to interested people, and there should be some authority over it. And unfortunately, we do not go into negating a person's wrong information. In that sense, that if suppose there is a bad reel by someone who is telling the wrong thing, I will not take that reel and put it on my website and say that this is wrong. Okay, it is just basically to just to avoid this fighting later on. Okay, then you start one way or the other, so you don't. But then you remember there is a nice site which is called the Bad Astronomer, where this gentleman keeps putting, talking about the wrong information which has been given. Okay, so it remains. I mean, like what you said, the digital platform is certainly very useful to the extent that you can use your mobile phone as a finder telescope. You can mount it on your telescope and point to some objects. Right during the daytime, you can show Venus. So you can make such new technology, make it very useful for public amateur astronomer. But at the same time, you also have to guard against this falsifying videos which they say. Like one of the videos I remember, a person saying that pole star is a bright star. Okay, because it is at pole and they say it's a very bright star, which is completely wrong. Pole star is or Polaris, what you call it, is such a very faint star, and not so easily. From Mumbai sky, it's very difficult to see. So such kind of information, I don't know how to challenge such information, or at least to put such information on at one place where you would say. I mean, if you guys are interested, maybe you should put it up on your site and say that this is wrong and why this is wrong. Challenge it academically that okay, why this is wrong. Yeah.
Absolutely. Sir, I feel like as someone who does participate on Instagram in communicating a little bit of astronomy, collectively we do find, places like a couple of times ago, there was a video of a moon becoming so large in the sky, to explain supermoon. So a bunch of, science influencers, came on board and, called it out saying that, this is not true. This is being falsely popularized. So yeah, that is important, and that is one of the challenges, and I think even the platforms themselves are trying to help with doing that, which is why some of the credible people are getting blue ticks, so that people know that these are credible sources for following, and the others may not be credible. So hopefully in the future we have that a little more established. But like you very beautifully had summed up, in the beginning everything is always very unstructured, like it was in terms of science popularization as well. And now we are slowly moving towards the structure, and that actually brings me to my next question, sir.
But before that, I would also just like to say the viewpoint of some people. They also say that theek hai, it's okay if some people have put wrong information, but if they have made it exciting, then more people will get drawn towards you, and then eventually they will correct themselves. So at least this is one channel where giving some overly simplified view and wrong information, if the more number of people are attracted, why not? The viewpoint is there. That also exists. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead, please.
There is there. Yeah, and that was actually making me think of my next question, which is you spoke about how science communication is important. There is a little bit of responsibility attached to it as well. How does someone who is starting off in this field, what would be the three top tips you would give them in terms of getting started in science communication and astronomy outreach, and how could they make themselves more credible within the community?
Yeah, and I will be taking notes here because for Aposa, we are also trying to be or exist like a science communicator for the general audience out there as well through all these, the different programs that we are doing. And definitely I'm going to take notes now. Like I'm really taking.
See, first of all, if you are going to communicate science, here, your passion to that particular field is more important than professional astronomers. Okay, because professional astronomers would come through their examination, they would have studied the subject, they mastered the subject, and then eventually they end up doing more or less a 9 to 5 job. If not exactly 9 to 5 job, they're busy among themselves, but it's their business. Okay, they are not reaching out to people. They're brilliant people, certainly doing wonderful work in India. Okay, but when it comes to science popularization, what means you apply, what means you take to communicate science to people, you should be very careful about choosing the method or means. Okay, it like in earlier question, I said like to some extent maybe you are allowed to like glorify something which is not correct, but then how long? So once it has been done, then at least you should be able to tell people that look, this is not correct. What I told you is to attract your attention, but the correct thing is this. Okay, that is the science communicator should do. Science communicator should also study very well the basic. They don't have to solve mathematical equations, but they should at least read out some science, good good science books. Okay, here I'm right now restricting myself to science communicator as amateur astronomers or astronomy communicators. So in this case, they should read basic books on astronomy. Exotic things like black holes and dark matter, dark energy, etc., very attractive. And people, without their knowledge, without knowing something, they keep answering it. I remember once one fairly senior amateur astronomer was trying to answer a question on black hole. Okay, and which I, from experience, I knew it was obviously wrong, and I said so also, but he was very offended. But at this stage, what I wanted to tell you is that if you do not have the answer, correct answer, I mean, this is what people should remember, that if you do not have the correct answer, be honest and say, sir, sorry, or ma'am, I'm sorry, or whatever, and say that I'm sorry, I do not have the answer, but I will find the answer and I'll get back to you. that honesty every science communicator should have. Okay, who says everyone has answer to everything else? No, no one. I mean, there be some questions you will always not have answer to. So if that is the question, and then having said this, then communicating science is so challenging in itself and important, because this helps you to learn more. Because some question that you may not have asked yourself, but because someone has asked and you do not have answer, to go and find the answer, and then you are yourself educated automatically. So that's the thing I would like to say about uh, amateur astronomers taking this. I have some nonsense which I have seen. People have even defocused the star and say that, yeah, I'm showing you the comet, and that kind of a rubbish I have seen. People have done that. So you should be honest to your profession, very honest.
Exactly. And the points that you have mentioned, I feel like it's definitely going to not just about astronomy, like any field that you are in, like having that passion and being careful not to spread misinformation, or having the knowledge about what you do, and admitting the fact that if you don't know something, not just beat around the bush and telling them like, I don't know, just like, and like Aleena says, like myself says, please do enlighten me. There is this phrase that I use with these people, like whenever we had meetings and they had all these very nice ideas, and I'll be like clueless sometimes, and then I'll be like, okay, please enlighten me about it, and then they made it into a thing, and now they are going to bring in stickers with that. Look forward to it. Yeah. So I mean, all these things, it's something that we should do in our daily life, daily profession, whichever field you are. It is something that helps everyone to grow and evolve into a better person as well, right, Pooja?
Absolutely. And to be very honest, my mind was wandering away to the little jokes that Arvind sir was saying. I feel like that deserves another episode by itself, especially in terms of funny things people say and ask you when they come and visit you. I think at one point in time, we decided to have a session just to come and discuss one of those. Like, I remember one day when I was at the planetarium, someone asked me if seeing a movie on Mars would affect their child because they were pregnant. And I was, yeah. And I was in a particularly funny mood that day. So I ended up telling them, ideally it shouldn't, but if your son or daughter is born a little red, then don't blame me.
Why? I'm like,
So
I mean,
I
I'm
will
not.
have many more of these sort of what do you say? As we call it, what in Hindi we call it chutkulas, or like tidbits, the funny tidbits. Yeah. So any one very short
Yeah.
one that you'd like to share with us, please.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Any funny moments that you have faced, like, similar to what Pooja just mentioned about anyone asking you something way out of, that whole point. Yeah.
Okay, not funny, but it is funny in itself, in the sense. Uh, uh, yeah, what she talked about, the eclipses always bring questions from parents, that my child, and I always answer to them that, look, astronomy is not going to, eclipse are not going to do anything. You must take the precautions which your doctor says. I mean, that's the basic thing you have to do. It has nothing to do with the eclipses. But I'll narrate a small episode, and which I have seen it number of times, is that people come to you with a, when you have public meetings and all that, people come to you and they start asking you questions about the black holes, and young students, and I want to do this, I want to do that, I want to do PhD in astronomy, and all sorts of things they say. And then I ask this question. So, black hole, high energy, and they will talk, I want to go to sun, and so all sorts of things. So then I ask them a question that, okay, tell me, what's the speed of Earth in its orbit? Oh, you're asking me such a complicated question. How can I find the speed of Earth around the sun? Okay, I think this is an 8th, 9th standard question. All you have to find is that orbit of the Earth. It takes 365 days to go around the sun once. And the circumference of it's so simple. So point I was trying to drive at it is that there are simple things which people forget, and they keep talking about, boasting about their big knowledge of online. But funny stories, of course, if you recollect something which I should tell, I can tell. But right now, nothing more is coming into my mind at this stage. Yeah, but
Yeah,
the pregnancy thing is a very common thing. Yeah, okay, I'll tell you what. I mean, now that you have said, I just think a person came. I will use no biased. A person came and said that I want to see eclipse. And this person went on saying, and it was very cloudy night here. There's a lunar eclipse, a lunar eclipse. Yeah, it was a very cloudy night. And that person started telling us that, look, you are from Nehru Planetarium, prestigious institution, and you should have instrument, telescope that you should take it out and show us the eclipse and all that. I said, look, sky is cloudy. I can't show you. And this person went on troubling me for quite some time and blaming us for not having. And then later on, what the point they make is, though, if I'm abroad, then somewhere I would not have faced this problem. So what I did was, which is slightly a naughty thing on my part, or not so nice thing on my part, is that later on I called everybody inside the hall. I said, now let us sit and I will answer your questions about the eclipses. Let us discuss this eclipse. And this person also came in. And when this person repeated this, then I said that I'm challenging you in front of all of them, because first of my dialogue with this person was one-to-one with a few people. So I got it in public. I said, I'm challenging you in front of all of them that you show me one single professional observatory which can show you the lunar eclipse through an astronomical telescope, or so through any telescope, not radio telescope, but through optical telescope. I will give all my property to you, and I will sell this building and you can be the owner. Are you willing to take this challenge? Then person just turned around and vanished. So,
Basically, you just like to bird people, don't you?
yeah.
What they call a sarcastic bird. That's what you did. Show me
What you couldn't help it, because it was so. That person was not willing to understand what I'm trying to say, and top of everything else, they say that it is available abroad. As if NASA and United States are the benchmark of quality. Why our ISRO is doing a fantastic lot of work. Okay, I'm not saying that they are. I mean, of course, NASA has the resources; they have long history. But in a short period of time, ISRO has done a phenomenal work, superb work. I mean, high quality work ISRO has done. You can't negate that.
Yeah, exactly. And absolutely, I agree with the fact that, how ISRO has wonderfully done a lot of things, like being self-reliant, actually. Yeah. And it is, I think, when I talk about space and about India, I'm really, really proud to mention that, okay, we have ISRO, we are doing all these things, and we are self-reliant as well. And this is something I'm really, really proud of. And thank you for that very nice incident that you shared with us.
I'm sorry, I'm breaking. I think one point we should not forget, and ISRO is doing at the shoestring budget. They don't have budget like other institutions. I say we should not forget that. They're fighting against the time as well as money. So that's a big credit to them. Sorry.
Exactly. Absolutely. No, absolutely. I mean, that's a very, very valid point only. And and also, like I mentioned, the story that you shared with us, it was really, interesting to hear about how people react. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of people like that out there who just want to, I don't know, how shall I put it? I mean, let's not put it in any way, but still, let's move on to the next question and the final question of this podcast, which is, you have been credited for a lot of discoveries, especially the first asteroid that was discovered in India, which is called Ramanujan. Can you share the story behind on this discovery and their experience in the finding of this particular asteroid and everything?
Okay. Yeah. See, it happened like as follows: that I was in Leh, Ladakh, to set up a high altitude observatory during 84-86 period. I came down to Bangalore, Bangalore. In August or September of 1984. At that time, soon after my arrival, and I used to work in the photographic lab. So I was assigned to another scientist, Professor R. Raj Mohan, okay, and doing astronomical observations, because people at IA knew that I'm interested in doing observational astronomy. Actually, he was made in charge of the photographic lab, and then when he found out that I was in charge, in a sense, like he was my boss, I was still working in the photographic lab. So he said he started understanding me, understanding what I'm doing, etc., etc. Around this time, one person came. His name is Tom Gerrels, and he suggested. Tom Gerrels has been a great friend of India and Indian amateur astronomers and scientists. He has a lot of friends across the country. So he came and he said he suggested the director of IIA, Professor J.C. Bhattacharya, to search for 10th planet. Okay, there is a planet, at that time Pluto still was a planet. Okay, so the idea was that there is a planet beyond Pluto. So we search for that. So how do we start? So, I was involved in it. I mean, Bhattacharya told me that you talk to him. So my right thing to do for me was to directly talk to my boss. He was not very interested, but after the long discussions, he got interested in doing search for the 10th planet. And he even gave the name as Kalki, because Vishnu's 10th avatar is Kalki. Okay. So Kalki name was given for the project, to the project. And this is how we started. So it was a very difficult task. It was a photographic era. So my task basically was to prepare the observational work, photographic plate. My other two colleagues, Kupuswamy and Murthy, they were in Kavlur Observatory. Their task was to get the telescope ready and observe the thing. So what I used to do was I used to get the photographic plate in a technique called hypersensitization. So plates would go to Kavlur. They would be the observations would be taken. Right kind of plates would be sent to Bangalore. Then we will sit and actually analyze the plate, check for new objects one by one. And then we started finding a lot of new asteroids right in the beginning. We were very happy. But what we realized was that all these asteroids which we were finding, they were already found by someone else in United States. What had happened was as follows, that we published a paper about this Kalki project, and we said that we put a map that these are the regions we are going to observe on such and such date. So what our competitors were doing was that this guy was observing the same area that we are going to observe today. He would observe one day before us. So obviously, he got the more number of asteroids. It took us time to realize that this was happening. So we changed our strategy without telling people. I mean, we did all that sort of a thing. And so after doing that in 1988, January, we used to send regularly. And in those days, there was a machine called Telex. It was a typewriter kind of a machine, which is connected somewhere in, by electronically connected to somewhere in UK. And whatever you type on your machine, it gets typed there. Okay, so it was that kind of it was called Telex machine. And Telex machine was a very common thing for officials. Government business were sent by Telex from one place to another. So that was a Telex machine. So what would happen is that observations would come from Kavlur. We'll try and find everything. Then I had to measure a photographic plate. It would take me about 3 hours to measure one plate. Okay, so every place. Then getting the position and then finding the position of newly found object. Okay, so first of all, I'll list all the objects which were to be found. Okay. Doing the same thing, we will also run a computer program to find out what objects which have already been discovered. So it was a complicated process. Having done that, one day we got a message from telegram office in UK that this particular asteroid has been given a tentative designation as 1988 DQ1, and the discovery belongs to you. So so that news came, but it didn't stop at that. We had to observe that same object once again. Okay, so all that was done, and when we found it twice, then this object was considered a new object, and we got credit for it. Now, to just tell you the time frame of it, this asteroid was 4130 Ramanujan. Okay, that is 4130th object which was discovered, and in just few years, the total discovery climbed to 5-digit number, because people were started using CCD devices, electronic devices, to automatically search for asteroids. And then we had lost. Okay, I shifted to Bangalore, from Bangalore to Pune, and that project stopped at some stage. But that was our first discovery. Later on, few more asteroids were discovered by our team, and eventually the thing stopped. But yes, and many people ask that, were you excited? We're so tired, I'll tell you. We're doing this work. It's so tired that there was no chance to get excited. It is only a very complicated, hard routine that we've been. And then someday a telegram comes, okay, saying, they say, okay, fine. So we have a new asteroid. But it has to be observed again.
But it's really, really inspiring, I will say, that the whole process of it. And like, I'm pretty sure you might have felt a little excitement and joy, like when you received that information, right? Like, you have been the finder of this asteroid. And I mean, I'm really, really happy that, Arvind sir could join us for this episode 11 of Space Smurfs and give us a lot of information about astronomy, outreach, and space communication, and along with his, different experiences and funny stories that he have had throughout his entire career itself, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think I am personally very, very happy to have been able to do this interaction. And yeah, thank you so much, sir, for sparing time from your very busy schedule.
Exactly. And to all the audience out there, once again, we have a live interactive session happening on 6th of August, 5 p.m. IST. 5 p.m. IST, and join us on our Instagram live session with Arvind sir here and ask you questions about astronomy, outreach, and space communication. With that mentioned, we will be winding up today's episode, and till then, keep smurfing. This is your host, Aleena, signing out, and
Pooja here saying bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.